Welcome back to Andertons TV. Oh my goodness me, the videos are coming thick and fast. It must be NAMM week. Steve Smith, Steve Smith from Marshall is here to ably show us about some new Marshall pedals, right?
Yeah.
Please like and subscribe, especially this week, because the videos are coming super thick and fast. Like I say, I don't want you to miss anything. Every 10,000 new subscribers, we're giving away gear. And when we get to 1 million, who knows, maybe the NAMM thing will push us over the 1 million. We're giving away a real clon worth thousands and thousands of pounds. I don't know which video is going out first. I'm going to guess that the first Marshall video of today was showing you the beautiful new modified 1959 JCM 800 and JCM 900 Studio, which if you haven't seen yet, links will be below. Thank you, sir. That was an epic bit of playing there. But now for something slightly more affordable. Marshall have released 5 new compact distortion pedals, overdrive distortion pedals. Nothing sort of, you know, no wizardry going on here. There's no speaker emulation. There's no sense that you can plug this straight into a PA or anything like that. No. This is just a good old-fashioned overdrive pedal trying to emulate overdrive tones that are synonymous with all of these famous Marshall amps, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like I say, straight up overdrive. Again, the classic use of these is if someone's got a clean platform style amp and they want to get different styles of overdrive, then this is your thing.
Brilliant. All right, well look, we've decided to set the 1959 up pretty clean and flat, so hopefully it's a good pedal platform, but here is our basic guitar tone. Sounds great. Reverb is courtesy of a plugin in Logic, and we're going to go through the pedals chronologically. So the 1959 Super Lead Plexi, whatever you want to call it, I guess was not the first amp that Marshall ever made, but was probably the first real rock out and out amp that they made.
First kind of 100 watt, well not the first 100 watt, but what would become the first 100 watt of Marshalls, if you like. Every classic rock recording probably had one of these amps on it somewhere. And the idea of the pedal, like I say, is to give you that big, fat kind of plexi overdrive sound, regardless of which amp you plugged into.
So we're going from sort of Hendrix at the lighter end of the drive through to some of the modded 1959, so it gets pretty rocky.
It doesn't quite get modded, if I'm honest. I say this is quite traditional. Okay. In the sense of it gets you more to kind of Jimmy Page, I guess. But teasing on that Van Halen thing, but not as high gain. So
we've got the 2 input channels that you would normally have on the amp, high, treble and normal. Yep. Then we've got a tone and a volume. So let's start down at the lower end of our drive segment and see what we get.
Okay.
Great. Really nothing wrong with this. Just to whet your appetite a bit more as we go through the range, I was amazed on the price of these. So I'm going to tell you the price straight away. These are £119 each. So it's, you know, it's very affordable for a drive pedal. Yeah. Okay, let's just wind in. Now, when we were doing the demo of these, you were sort of saying most of the gain is in the treble channel rather than the normal channel. So
typically, yeah, for when people want that typical rock sound.
So I'm going to just go 50% of the treble, leave the normal where it is, see what happens. Okay. And then if we bring the normal up to match that. It starts to get a bit flubby, doesn't it? Which I guess is why guitar players don't naturally use a lot of the normal channel. What if I'm guessing this is a totally alien tone, but what if we go this way?
Let's try it. Kind of gets kind of fuzzy at the low end, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite different. On the amp, if you were to do that, you would get this like very boomy, bassy, clean tone. So it's obviously designed to react slightly differently to the amp. Let's go normal, staying about 9 o'clock, and then we'll wind the high treble in 3/4 of the way around.
Okay.
I guess you can start to see where you're getting into those more sort of late 70s, early 80s inspired tones. Just because, let's just keep winding it in.
Sure.
And just to remind you, that's what we've got. So you can hear like 99.9% of the gain is coming from the pedal there.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us about this pedal before we just move on to the 800?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not a lot to say, which is pretty much a straightforward overdrive, like I say. The high treble and normal controls, just for anybody that may easily get confused, effectively on this pedal, they're acting as a gain control for each of the two voices, if you like.
Yeah.
The tone control, like I say, is really going to be dependent on which style amp you plug it into. Like for me, if you plug it into like a Fender style amp with this, you back that tone off a little bit more, whereas plugging into a Marshall, you don't need to as much. So
right. Cool.
Depends on the bright cap.
All right, well, a couple of other things that are universal across all the pedals. They can be battery powered, they can be 9-volt powered, and they just have a top mounted in and out jack. So top mounted jack's always handy. It means you can get your pedals nice and close together, which actually on these I would say is even more important because they are wider than a traditional, say, Boss Compact or something like that. If you're really keen to reduce the weight of your pedal board, I would go and check the weight of these before you buy them, because you pick them up and you go, ooh, that's reassuringly heavy. But yeah, they're much heavier than a normal compact pedal, so I don't know what goodness is in there to make that heavy, but there we are. Anyway, onto this one. So yes, as you may have gathered from the previous video we did this, the next big amp that came out from Marshall after the 1959 probably was the JCM 800. This ushered us into a sort of a new era of higher gain master volume amps. Yeah. So, but tell me about this sort of the interaction between gain and sensitivity. I think tone and volume, people will know what they do.
Yeah. With the JCM 800 amplifier, you had a high and low input, which was basically high or low sensitivity. Right. That's what it was labelled as. Plugging into the low one gave you a much cleaner sound. Plugging into the higher one, you get all the gain. The idea with this, you know, to make this pedal a bit different to the others, was to give you that option on a pot, so you can go from low sensitivity to high input and anywhere in between. But also, they have taken a few liberties on this one. With the sensitivity up, it gives you a little bit more gain than a regular 800 would. Right. Okay. Cool. But so effectively, these two controls for gain, tone, and volume. All right. Well, let's have a little listen. Again, let's start off down at the lower end of the spectrum. See what we've got. It's very reminiscent. It's tighter, more saturated, not as boomy as the 1959. But I think most people with an 800, you just need more gain. Yeah. So let's start creeping around the 12 o'clock mark. It's the sound. These are very good, aren't they? Okay, bit more. 9 o'clock. Sorry, 3 o'clock now and everything. 3/4 of the way up. I'm going to fiddle around. I'm going to go lower sensitivity, higher. Is this more edge of breakup stuff then, maybe like this? Or yeah, probably with the gain control down a little bit as well, but yeah, you can.
I think again in that previous video we did on the 800, it surprised me again. Obviously we were doing the modified one, but it is more versatile than perhaps people believe it might be.
I think it's what people expect it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yes. Everything on full. Well, I say everything. Gain and sensitivity on full. What have we got here? Probably starts to lose some of the definition, doesn't it? But it does. Still sounds fat.
And I think that's when you'd probably start creeping up with the tone control as well to compensate with that, because it does get a little bit muffled with all the gain.
All right, so after 800, I've given it away. After 800 came 900, so let's plug that in. Okay, so we're on to the 900 now. This, in terms of, it never replaced the 800, did it? It just came along alongside it. But this was the first channel switching, dual master for volume.
Yep.
And I guess people will also remember it for just having more gain than an 800 would have had. I don't know if it never ever became quite as infamous as the 800. But I definitely remember there being a few perhaps more progressive rock metal bands that preferred 900s.
Yeah, it's a funny one because, like I said, the 900s came about as an answer to the modded Marshall scene. When they came out in 1990, a lot of the rock guys were using it, some of the progressive guys, like you say. But then I think as music took a turn back then, a lot of the indie bands and the punk bands and even Britpop bands were using 900s for a while, so it became a bit of a different thing.
Cool. Now, obviously, there's no attempt to replicate the channel switching or anything on here, so we've just got gain, contour, which will be a tone control, or a sort of like a sweeping tone control, traditional tone, and volume. So I guess let's see what happens with this setting. I love how you've now gone into your 1990s sort of pop punk kind of. Yeah, maybe that's the vibe, but it is a smoother kind of higher gain, isn't it, than 800?
Yes, yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to go halfway on the gain.
Okay.
Just reminds me of the wedding band I used to be in the 1990s, where that was it. Every song was Blink 182
That's it.
Sum 41 or whatever.
Just need my skateboard now.
Yeah. Let's see what this whilst you're playing, I'm going to sweep the contour control and people can hear what that's doing.
Okay.
So that's just shifting that sort of mid-range sort of EQ, isn't it?
The idea with that one is, because I think with the 900, the big difference in general with the 900 sound is the mid-range is quite different to a traditional Marshall. So the thinking was, depending which amp you may plug into, you might not be able to capture that characteristic. So it's basically like a tweak for the mid-range.
Yeah. And then I guess if we just put it all in... This for me is where the term fizz kind of start. It's as this is not a criticism of Marshall or whatever, but I think guitar amps reached a point now where there was like, oh, hang on, maybe we've got too much gain now.
Exactly that.
And the fizz starts to happen. Some people love that sound, but yeah, for me, the good sound is just back it off a little bit from the fizz, and then it.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't like that amp because it's fizzy. It's like, well, turn the gain down then.
That's all it is, isn't it? Fizz is just too much gain.
Yeah.
Okay. After the 900 came an amp called the Dual Super Lead, which was a British-made amp for a while, wasn't it? And then the DSL moniker kind of sort of transferred onto a more recent,
that's right,
Far Eastern-built Marshall amplifier. But this is obviously based on the British dual super lead of what, sort of mid to late 90s?
It was 97-ish when it came out,
right.
And it was people may know it as the JCM 2000, which was the kind of overarching name at the time for that range.
Let's plug this in. Okay, gain, deep, tone, and volume. So much the same kind of vibe as the previous pedal, but with just deep instead of contour. But I'm guessing that's probably doing a similar thing, isn't it? Really, or just more like a resonance thing?
Yes, more resonance, because on the actual amps they had a deep button, which you could just add all this fat low end depending on what sound you were going for or what cab you were using. And then on the more recent versions of the DSL amps, there's a deep pot, which allows you to control the amount.
Cool. All right, well, let's start again with the gain. If I remember rightly, this wasn't a natural progression in the Marshall lineup. It was going, well, let's have even more gain. This was almost like going, hang on, can we make this a bit more of a more usable jack of all trades kind of vibe?
But that was it, yeah. And they wanted the flexibility that the 900s had, 2-channel, because that's what the DSLs were, dual super lead with a reverb. But I think it tried to go back to more of the original,
like classic rock
Marshall sound.
Yeah. All right. So we might find this one is a step back in terms of volume. But let's have a little listen. I backed the deep down as soon as you started playing there, because I think with this amp and this cab, it's very easy to get too much bass.
It's huge anyway, yeah.
I'm guessing if you're plugging this into your Boss Katana 1x12 or whatever, you could afford to wind that deep sound in and it would work.
Yeah, again, if you're plugging into some a little combo on your pedal board, there's that deep can make it sound a bit more like a stack.
Whilst you play, let me just muck around with that and people can see what this depth can. It's definitely wound all the way in. It's way too much, way more than this needs. But what I quite like is it's clearly I don't think 0 is the starting point. It feels like it is actually taking a bit of bass end away and tightening things up as I reduce it down, which I think is useful in some use cases.
Like I say, that control is purely designed on which amp you're going to go into. Like I say, on a 412, it's too much. You don't need it so much. So.
All right, well, look, let's wind up. We'll go half the gain.
Okay.
Sounds good. And then lots of gain. Sounds good to me. And finally, the most recent, although in all fairness, this does feel like saying this is the most recent, this must be 20 years old now, isn't it, JVM? Or certainly 15 years old.
It's a modern classic, that's what it is.
So this is JVM, and this is the range that spawned all the multi-channel stuff. Rabir was using JVM for a long time. Satriani's amp was based on JVM. I vaguely remember, didn't JVM do lots of channels, MIDI? It was a real
it was kind of like does everything.
Yes.
There was 4-channel versions of the JVM and 2-channel versions, but each channel had 3 modes of gain as well. Right, so there was a lot going on.
So this really was a do-it-all kind of guitar amplifier. Where would you think then that the I've just noticed it's got a noise gate built in as well. Did JVM amps have noise gates?
The standard production JVMs don't. We did do a Joe Satriani signature for a while,
which had the gate.
Yeah, he took the reverb out, put the gate in instead.
That's right. Okay, so we've got a gate in here now. So I'm guessing then that this is all about replicating the higher end
Yes.
of the gain sounds in JVM.
Yeah, so it's like the overdrive
Yeah.
channels, which will take you from between really the orange and red modes.
And just to throw you off here, they've reversed the order of the knobs as well. So now volume's over on the left and gain's over on the right. So let's just see, with no gate and a low amount of gain, what does this sound like? In fact, let's have a quick reminder of what the amp sounds like with nothing. It's pretty clean. Here we go. It's not as gainy as I thought. It's still sort of quite rocky, isn't it?
Yeah,
at
you
that
can
level?
definitely get the lower gain sounds, but it does ramp up a little towards the end.
All right, let's have a look. Here we go, halfway. Can we just keep this? This is literally possibly the greatest guitar sound that we've had in this studio for months. Fine. Haven't really engaged the gate yet, so I'll try and see if I can. So we put a load of gain in, and let's see what that's.
Again.
Now, presumably, at some point, right, there we go. Okay, so you can hear the hiss, and we can reduce. Now, there's absolutely no point winding in more of the gate than you really need if your objective is just to get rid of the hiss. I guess if the objective is to try and introduce that more staccato style,
like a gated cut off.
Then you might wind more in.
Yes.
So. Don't know. Do you play any of that kind of?
Not really, but we can pretend.
Okay, I'll put a lot of the gate in then, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that's the vibe, right? I wonder how many. Yeah, I wonder how many modern metal players will be almost too young to even remember that JVM was a thing, and whether this will kind of reintroduce them to that. Because the gate might be quite useful. For that.
I think it is, and actually, because JVM had so much gain on tap, people would say, "Oh, when I'm on the overdrive channel on red with the gain turned up, it's really noisy." It's like because there's a lot of gain, it's going to happen. It
didn't sound. I mean, I wouldn't have said that. That's. No. You know, you're not literally going, that's unplayable. I mean, I don't know. I suppose if the amp was a lot louder, maybe and maybe you were getting some feedback issues and you wanted to clean that up. I mean, it's very effective. What does it do? I have a bit of a love-hate thing with gates, mainly hate. But like when you let the note ring or you're trying to play with more dynamics, sometimes the gate just can't differentiate between what's unwanted noise and what's wanted noise.
This is pretty good actually, because I did try that with rolling the guitar off and that kind of stuff to see how it responds. Because,
let's try it.
But it's getting it to that point where that's probably too high at the moment.
Okay.
So you want to get it to what you were doing earlier, where you get rid of the hiss and then kind of leave it there. That tends to be the sweet spot for all of that.
All right.
There you go. So again, with the guitar right up. Cleaning the guitar up. So it does come in a little sharp there.
Yeah.
So it does tail it off a little bit.
But you've got
I'm
ready
back
to go,
way
like,
off there, yeah.
Woof.
And then I'm back.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope one of these pedals tickled your fancy, because they're all available to buy from Andertons if you follow the links below. And do you know what? I'm impressed with the sounds. The price is great. I sort of feel a bit like the lion's share of the business is going to be done on the two most famous ones. But I think there'll be people, listening to one of the other three, especially the gate on the JVM. They might be going, "Oh, that's what I need. That's what I want."
Yeah, I think people just got to got to come and try them, mate, and see which one they go for. So,
indeed, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. See you very soon. Au revoir.